What are God's plans for me? Leo stood at the edge of the graduation stage, diploma in hand, a hollow echo of applause ringing in his ears. The world spread before him like an open map, every path glowing with promise, yet he felt no pull in any direction. For weeks, he wandered through his quiet apartment, the silence amplifying the question that pulsed in his mind. What now? He decided ambition was the answer. He polished his resume, donned a crisp suit, and marched into the gleaming towers of finance. The job came quickly, accompanied by a salary that should have felt like victory, but the days bled into a monochrome routine of spreadsheets and stock reports. His coworkers spoke of bonuses and promotions with fervor, while Leo only felt the growing weight of his own disinterest. Each night he came home. The paycheck looked good, but it couldn't quiet the emptiness inside. Seeking distraction, he turned to the glow of his phone. He curated a life online, photos of expensive dinners, views from high-rise windows, carefully crafted captions about success. Likes and comments piled up, a digital currency that felt momentarily satisfying. But the validation was fleeting, a sugar rush that left him more drained than before. He started to measure his worth in followers and likes. Each notification pulled him deeper into comparison and anxiety. Then came Maya with her easy laugh and thoughtful eyes. Their relationship became a new project, a shared adventure he hoped would fill the gaps. They explored the city, shared secrets over late-night coffee, and for a while the noise in his mind quieted. He convinced himself that love was the missing piece, the purpose he had been searching for. But as the newness faded, so did the illusion. He realized he was using her presence as a shield against his own uncertainty, and the guilt of that realization created a distance even their best moments couldn't bridge. When she quietly ended things, citing his emotional absence, he wasn't even surprised. Alone again, the silence returned, louder and more demanding than before. He had chased money, approval, and love, and each pursuit had left him with the same hollow feeling. Lying in the dark, he stared at the ceiling and whispered into the stillness, a prayer that was more plea than praise. He had been searching for a sign, a clear roadmap from God, but all he had found were dead ends and his own reflection, looking back more lost than ever. The grand plan he had been taught to believe in felt like a distant myth, and he was no closer to understanding his place within it. The loss of the finance job came not with drama, but with a quiet, dismissive email, a restructuring, they called it. Leo read the words on his screen, the sterile corporate language failing to mask the raw finality of it. The security he had mistaken for purpose vanished in an instant, leaving him adrift once more. The apartment, once a symbol of potential independence, now felt like a cage with walls that seemed to inch closer each day. The breakup with Maya, which he had initially numbed with busyness, began to ache with a sharper, more persistent pain. He replayed their last conversation in his mind, her gentle but firm words echoing in the empty spaces of his life. He hadn't fought for her, hadn't given her a reason to stay, because deep down he had nothing real to offer. The loneliness that followed was a physical presence, a cold companion that sat with him through long evenings and even longer nights. He avoided friends, ignored calls, and let the world outside his window become a distant spectacle he no longer felt part of. Weeks bled into a gray monotony. He moved through his days in a haze, sleeping too much and eating too little, each sunset a reminder of another day spent running in place. The questions about God's plan, once a theoretical struggle, now felt like a taunt. Had God forgotten him? Had he been overlooked? The faith of his childhood felt like a story meant for someone else, someone whose life unfolded in straight, sure lines. It was in the thick of this desolation that an unexpected email arrived. It was from Professor Evans, his old art history teacher, a man whose lectures on Renaissance masters had once made Leo feel the world was brimming with hidden meaning. The professor had heard, through the vague grapevine of alumni, that Leo was having a rough time. He didn't offer pity or empty platitudes. Instead, he invited Leo for a walk in the botanical gardens. They met under a canopy of ancient oaks, the air cool and smelling of damp earth. Leo walked beside the older man, his hands shoved in his pockets, expecting a pep talk. Instead, Professor Evans stopped before a sprawling, intricate mosaic bench. The tile work was stunning, a complex depiction of a tree with roots digging deep and branches stretching toward a sky inlaid with chips of blue and gold glass. "The restoration team just finished this," the professor said, his voice soft. "It was shattered, vandalized years ago, a meaningless act of destruction." He gestured to the vibrant, seamless image before them. "The artist who repaired it told me something I've never forgot. She said she didn't hide the breaks, she used them. The lines where the pieces were rejoined became the veins in the leaves, the cracks in the bark. The broken places didn't ruin the mosaic, they gave it its depth, its story, its strength." She said the most beautiful mosaics aren't the ones made from perfect, untouched tiles, but the ones masterfully restored from fragments others would have thrown away. He placed a gentle hand on Leo's shoulder. "We spend so much time looking for the grand design, the big, perfect picture we think we're supposed to be creating. We forget that the master artist often works best with fragments." The words settled over Leo, not as an immediate answer, but as a key turning in a long-locked door. He returned home that evening not with a solution, but with a new lens. He knelt by his bed, not to beg for a new path, but to simply sit in the silence, to look back at the fragments of his recent life, the lost job, the failed relationship, the isolating loneliness. And in the quiet of that prayerful reflection, a shift occurred. He saw not a series of random failures, but a collection of lessons. The soulless job had taught him that his worth was not a number on a paycheck. The hollow social media chase had shown him the poverty of validation sought from strangers. The heartbreak had carved out a new capacity for empathy, an understanding of quiet pain he'd never possessed before. The isolation had forced him to finally sit with himself, to hear his own thoughts above the world's noise. He hadn't been moving away from a plan, he had been moving through it. Each hardship was a fractured piece, sharp and painful in isolation, but now he could begin to see how they might fit together into a larger, more resilient whole. God's plan was not a single revealed blueprint, but a patient, gradual work of art, a mosaic being assembled one experience, one lesson, one broken piece at a time. The picture was still emerging, but for the first time Leo understood. He was both the project and the apprentice, learning to trust the hands that held the pieces.